Hey investors, welcome back to Shark Investments, where I identify quality stocks for your further consideration. Wow, look at the names on the list this week. Can you believe that one of these folks didn't make the list? Well, you know I wouldn't tease you like that. Somebody didn't. Take a note and then come on, dive in. Let's go swimming with the sharks and see who it is. We're diving right in with Polaris Industries, PLL. Polaris makes all-terrain vehicles, snowmobiles, the fun stuff that folks like to get outside and romp around in, sometimes even use for work. They are a Div 0, 17 years of increasing dividends per share. Here's what that looks like on the long-term cash flow, earnings, and dividends per share tracker. And here's their year to year. That was in the recreation industry. Now we're going to shift to the entertainment industry. Probably doesn't surprise anybody. Disney, Walt Disney, DIS, makes the list as a cash flow 1. And here was their one bad year in the 08-09 downturn, so nothing unusual there. And nothing great about their yield at 1.6. Here's their long-term cash flow, earnings and dividends per share, so pretty nice upward trend. And here is the year-to-year change. Now we're going to go into the publishing industry. No groans and moans hanging your head, saying things like, that's a dead industry, I'm not paying attention. There's still a lot of folks that read things like magazines, and that's what Meredith Corp does. They're into the kind of magazines that you're going to see on those grocery aisles just as you're going through the checkout. The kind of thing that folks will pick up, take home, among other things. So they're at 4%, so that's also a pretty decent yield. And they've been doing it for 17 years as a Div 0. So 17 years of increasing dividends per share. So that's nothing to sneeze at. And here's what they look like on the long term. So again, that cash flow and earnings doesn't get you terribly excited, but maybe that dividend yield will as part of your income portfolio and some diversification. And here's the year to year. Now the other place that publishing is still of value is in the academic scientific world, and that's where John Wiley & Sons operates, JWA, 2.6%, not great, but it is a Div 0, so they're qualified as a Div 0, and it's a different space than Meredith. Their long-term cash flow, earnings, and dividends per share, relatively upward track there, but kind of bouncing around. And here's the year to year. Next up, we're in the advertising industry. So Omnicom Group, OMC, their yield is 3.2%, and they are qualified as a cash flow 1 and an earnings 1. Cash flow 1, earnings 1. Advertising industry, here you go with their long-term trend line. And the thing about the advertising industry is it's still going to be just as important in the digital age as was in the publishing age, and it looks like Omnicom has figured that out and it remains in the game. Here's what the year-to-year looks like. Now we're going into the diversified chemical industry. Air Products, APD, dividend yield 2.9%. I've worked at companies that have used these folks before. You've seen their trucks out there with all the big bottles on them, but they're into other chemicals as well. They are a Div 0. And here's their long-term trend, so generally up with a little instability in there. And you can see, though, that their dividend per share is a nice, steady upward progression. Here's what the year-to-year looks like. Then there's PPG Industries, PPG. Their yield is 1.8%, and that is boring. It doesn't matter that they are a Div 0. When you're paying that low, this is not an income play. You got to ask yourself if it's a play for some other part of your portfolio, but hard to recommend it as an income play, even though it's a Div 0. Here's what their long-term trend line looks. Kind of all over the place, but generally moving up. And here's the year-to-year. So we can see what this looks like for issue number 12. We only had 7 qualified companies in this issue. Of those 7 companies, only one had a yield to get even a little bit excited about, Meredith. And they're in the publishing business doing magazines. So let's take a look here at these 2 that didn't make the list. But hey, one of them's got a better yield than anybody else on the list. So who would these be? Well, there you go. The first one up, Harley-Davidson. When I saw them on the list, I couldn't help but talk about them. They've been all over the news lately. Some people love them. Some people hate them. Some people ride them. It's a lifestyle thing. I'm not a motorcycle rider, so I can't weigh in on that. All I can do is look at it from a straight business sense and say, okay, their yield is 4.1%, but they don't make our list because they had a negative year and a flat year. Now, granted, that was coming out of the recession time there, but still, don't make the list, you don't make the list. Here's what they look like on the year-to-year. Wow, look at that huge hit there in 08, 09. The dividends followed that huge hit, and they've been trying to climb out, kind of gotten flat here. I'm sure that those of you that pay attention to this, you've got a better understanding than I do because they're not on my list to really spend much time on other than I see them in the news a lot. And here's the year-to-year. Now, we had 2 companies that were in the chemical list as qualified, so I thought I would grab one of the non-qualified chemical companies, Eastman Chemical. They're at 3.1%, but look at that. Their dividend yield was flat from 02 all the way up to 09. Didn't start going up until they went into 10. And I really can't say that that's a great increase after that. So really nothing to get terribly excited about with Eastman Chemical. But if you have diversified into the chemical industry, you had 2 other companies to look at, APD and PPG. Here's one to look at. Their yield is, as you can see, their yield at 3.1% is better than either Air Products or PPG, but they weren't qualified because they didn't pay for a long time. All right, folks, that wraps up issue 12. Again, a shout out to the Value Line Investment Survey. Take a look at valueline.com. See if there's any of their products that would be helpful for you when you're doing your investment research. Give me a thumbs up, like, subscribe, and share with some other folks so that they too can benefit from everything that I'm putting out there and sharing with y'all. Have a great investment week, and we'll talk with y'all later on.